Hello. Well, I'm back and welcome back to all of you. It's day 2 of the Registered Apprenticeship Virtual Academy. Again, I'm Vicki Thompson, and today I'll be going over part 2 of building partnerships for registered apprenticeship success. Let's get started. So today I'm going to go over an example to provide information on how Thomas P. Miller & Associates, the firm that I work for, helped facilitate partnership development to design group-sponsored modeled apprenticeship programs in the states of Ohio and Pennsylvania. The organization that we partnered with was the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition, located in Northeast Ohio. But let's recap the information that I shared yesterday in part 1. Why is it important to create partnerships? Here are a few reasons. You can gain access to pre-existing local resources. And you want to do that because you don't want to waste time if there's something that already exists that can be utilized. Increase entity points into the program for apprentices and businesses. Avoid duplication of training programs. Align the registered program with local workforce needs, which is vitally important if you want to be able to have any cohorts and fill those demands for employers. Share resources and practices. So share the good and the bad so that then people don't repeat what could be a waste of time. And develop and plan wraparound services. I'm certain there are additional reasons that you can come up with concerning why it's important to create partnerships for registered apprenticeship success in your community. And wraparound services are very important. So make sure you know who those partners are and what it is that they can provide. Then I went over how partnerships can help. They can help in discovering, advocating for, and the use of funding. And funding becomes very important when we talk about registered apprenticeship programs and what you can do to get employers to initially start into the process. They also help connect apprentices to employers. And I talked about that previously and the ways that you can do that. Wraparound services and how advantageous those are for new hires, incumbent workers, and employers. Partnerships also help by connecting registered apprenticeship program sponsors to curriculum assistants and technical assistants. And finally, partnerships are also important for helping with state, regional, and local policy for all parties involved. Lastly, I provided information on agencies to consider for partnerships: county, city, and national organizations such as United Way, community-based organizations such as Community Action Partnerships, faith-based organizations, and others. And I had all of you write that down. I'm going to continue to have you write things down because I really want you to be able to put together a plan after you're done with this virtual academy. So make sure you're really thinking about how many partners you could have and what their roles can be and making sure that you have a successful registered apprenticeship program. Now we're going to dive deep into how TPMA facilitated partnership development with each of the partners listed here. You may want to consider who else in your locale should be added to your partner list. So I'll go over the employers and how we got them involved, the state and Department of Labor apprenticeship offices, training and education providers, the workforce development boards and job centers, sector partnerships, and of course, you may have others. So how to facilitate partnership development when you consider the employer. Traditionally, when you begin to facilitate partnerships for registered apprenticeship programs, you start with the employer needs related to in-demand jobs, what the occupation or occupations look like, what gaps employers are specifically trying to fill, and who's willing to lead the charge to get answers. Those are all very big and important questions that need to be answered. In my example, all of those things are addressed, but it was the leadership of a local manufacturer in Youngstown, Ohio, who spurred the call to change for focusing on all those things. He was tired of the poaching game that he and his fellow manufacturers were playing, and he recognized that the best way to stop or at least slow down the poaching was to grow the career pathways to manufacturing by collaborating with other manufacturers and working with education and training providers. He connected with the local workforce development board, met a person who was transitioning from their work with the American Jobs Center to a position with Thomas P. Miller and Associates. And together, they worked to form the coalition and then eventually group-sponsored apprenticeship programs. So here's what that looked like. There was a convening of interested manufacturers. It was determined that the best way to start this coalition with some base funding was to have a commitment for membership from those manufacturers. Membership includes not only manufacturers, but now also includes workforce development boards, education providers, community-based organizations, financial institution, and many others. That seed money was used to help fund an executive director and an assistant on a monthly basis. They formed a nonprofit, agreed on a mission, a vision, and bylaws, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition was formed. With the slogan, Industry-Led Solutions for Developing Our Manufacturing Workforce, MVMC has been going strong since 2011. Here's a video to give you a glimpse into the work the coalition leads.
So the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition is laser focused on identifying and addressing the common needs of our manufacturers, specifically related to workforce.
Everywhere I've worked in my previous companies, I've always been engaged with whatever the local manufacturing association is. And I will say that MVMC is a totally different animal when it comes to that. Just the level of engagement, not just with the member organizations, but with the local technical schools, the career centers, and being able to give us what we're asking for, not the cookie cutter, hey, here's a program, go to your local tech school, send them to a class. It has really been a unique experience, and that's why I'm as engaged as I am.
So some of the things that our members get excited about are our recruitment strategies. We've got a pre-apprenticeship program at the high school level and our work advance program that helps to attract people from other industries in this competitive labor market. We're also helping companies with their upskilling. We've got a group-sponsored apprenticeship program, for example, that allows our members to plug and play. And so especially for small and medium-sized companies, it's a great solution to help them to really transfer the skills and knowledge from their more seasoned employees to those that have the potential for continued growth.
We don't have a staff of people out there looking for how do we get our training paid for. That's what MVMC gives us, that link. But then there's the part where when you're working with all of the other organizations, you pick up things like best practices, you pick up things like, someone will make a comment in one of the meetings and you'll say, we haven't tried that, so that's something that we can look at.
The labor market is like nothing we've seen before. It's an unusual labor market, it's a tight labor market, and it's causing us to be even better at problem solving and innovating and spreading the word through a wider network of partners about the jobs that are available in manufacturing. I think it's also really causing manufacturers to think about what do they need to do as a company to attract and retain and develop their employees, and MVMC allows them to access resources to support their efforts to do just that.
As you can see, the Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition has done very well, bringing in millions of dollars in grant funding since its inception so that it continue the work that it's doing that you saw there on the video. And you can see that they've been able to maintain those relationships very well with employers and other partners to keep things moving. TPMA has helped in the development of the coalition in Erie County, Pennsylvania, called the Erie Regional Manufacturer Partnership, ERMP. They too were assisted by TPMA for some time as they established themselves, and were also involved with promoting and using the Mahoning Valley Manufacturer Coalition's group-sponsored model registered apprenticeship programs. MVMC received, in partnership with West Central Job Partnership in Pennsylvania, a $2.9 million American Apprenticeship Initiative grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. It was obvious that lots of partnering would need to be done and would be necessary to meet the goals of the grant. A few of them are listed on this slide, but in addition to these goals were those related to the development of competency-based group-sponsored registered apprenticeship programs. So you can see here that not only were they charged with creating 300 registered apprentices, 200 pre-apprentices within this 14-county footprint of Eastern Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, but also consider the fact that they had to create registered apprenticeship programs that everybody, all of the manufacturers in that group could agree to. So it was very important to get everybody on the same page and make sure that that partnership was solid so that they could have success. Employers would need to sit together and collaborate on the details of the standards of apprenticeship. Everything from the apprentice selection process, on-the-job learning, the supplemental instruction for each program, and more. The manufacturers agreed that a group-sponsored model would be the most beneficial, especially because many of the Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition members and ERMP members were operating locally owned manufacturing facilities, and they didn't have the capacity to implement and maintain an individual registered apprenticeship program, the majority of them anyways, and so that's why they decided to go with a group-sponsored model. Once the Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition received the grant, we knew that success would involve a strong partnership with the Ohio State Apprenticeship Office and the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship and Training Office. Each state was on board early, and that proved extremely valuable. We met both in person and virtually throughout the grant period. The offices provided information and worked alongside the TPMA MVMC team to find work process schedules and assist as we sat with the manufacturers to build out curriculum and on-the-job learning via many meetings and much discussion. The manufacturers agreed that the first registered apprenticeship program they wanted to develop was for a machinist apprentice. Eventually, a welding registered apprenticeship program and an industrial maintenance mechanic registered apprenticeship program would be added to the list of competency-based group-sponsored models. And a number of modifications to the registered apprenticeship programs have occurred since each one's inception, requiring facilitated discussion. And so anytime there was a modification that needed to be done, we needed to get a group of manufacturers together to all agree to what that should look like. So how did we do it? The development of the supplemental education addressing the related instruction for each of the registered apprenticeship programs sponsored by MVMC meant that the providers all had to be on the same page. A few years earlier, the TPMA MVMC team was able to get all the post-secondary career and technical centers to agree on one curriculum for their full-time machining programs. TPMA was able to use that commitment and level of collaboration so that MVMC members could use any of the CTCs and community colleges without worry that one apprentice might be receiving different instruction than another attending classes within the footprint. So you can see that earlier commitment allowed for the commitment to happen quickly with the registered apprenticeship program. Cohort starts were staggered and were developed via county so that classes could run without the schools losing money. Because as you all know, when you're working with a school, you have to make sure that if you're asking them to build a cohort, the cohort is big enough so that they can pay for the instructor, the materials, etc. TPMA also made clear that the employer-education relationship had to be solid so that the registered apprenticeship mentor, the education instructor, and apprentice were all on the same page when it came time for competency testing, as well as the standards of apprenticeship information related to attendance and grades. Once that apprentice commits to going through the program and all the paperwork, which I will talk about in just a minute, has to be signed, they're making a commitment to go through the entire process. And when we talk about a competency-based program, understand that an apprentice can move at their own speed, depending on how well they can demonstrate what it is that they're learning. And that is why they agreed to utilize for a number of their registered apprenticeship programs that are competency-based and industry recognized credential. And in this case, they use NIMS because that has already been validated, and it's one that all the employers could agree to that made sense for the registered apprenticeship programs. So all of the information that I'm sharing with you on the process that we went through to do the registered apprenticeship programs is true of that same commitment that was necessary for the pre-apprenticeship training as well. Those courses, the pre-apprenticeship ones, provided a seamless pathway possible so that high school or adults attending a career and technical center or a community college could use those for registered apprenticeship prior credit. No matter where that training took place, it was consistent with all the other educational providers and what they were offering so that there could be smooth transitions and a pathway that was built. Since this registered apprenticeship program grant covered a 14-county footprint in Eastern Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, TPMA had a great advantage to getting everyone on board with the registered apprenticeship program from the workforce development boards and job centers. Watch this video and you'll understand why.
The first officially designated interstate region in the country, OPEN is comprised of Columbiana, Mahoning, and Trumbull counties in Ohio, and Lawrence and Mercer counties in Pennsylvania. Through reinvention and recruitment, leaders are working together to maximize the potential of the area's common labor force and industries, ensuring that no opportunity to grow business goes unnoticed.
We are seeing a resurgence in manufacturing, the new wave as well as the tradition.
The OPEN project is really unique for a number of different reasons.
Organizations on both sides of the border are working cooperatively to foster economic development.
We have the most sophisticated, capable workforce and the most productive in the world, bar none.
Over 50% of the population is within a day's drive from here.
It's small enough so that you really feel comfortable here, but it's big enough so that you can get the resources that you need.
Having grown up in Germany, what I always like better about America is that if you have a dream or an idea, you still can do it.
I view it more as a basketball team where everybody's competitive, everybody's trying to get minutes on the floor, but as a team, we can win the game. And that's what's happening here in the open region.
With flourishing manufacturing, energy, distribution, and strong economic partners to help encourage their growth, the OPEN interstate region is fast becoming the place to be for new and existing companies in these and other industries.
The unique opportunity that a business has here is that you have a cooperative environment that exists between the different communities that straddle the state line.
We want people to succeed. We want our organizations to succeed. That's our bottom line.
And people in this area will remove barriers to help businesses and organizations succeed.
We have a team that's striving for that collaborative, competitive niche in the world economy.
The OPEN region features a unique environment as the only metro area located equally between New York and Chicago.
We have had people come to look at this area simply because of our transportation and labor force capabilities.
We are also located within a day's drive of 25 of the top metro areas. There are many locations within the 5 counties available for new or expanding businesses, including available buildings and shovel-ready sites.
We know we need to incentivize companies to come here, to locate here, like velocity magnetics, like measles Bruce. And in order to do that, we have different incentive programs.
Many economic development programs and incentives are available to enable, develop, and maintain business success.
You're going to pay a fair price to come in an area that has aggressive incentives like KOZ zones, which are virtually tax-free.
It is wonderful if you can attract companies to your region, but more importantly, we have to respect the companies that are here. Business retention is extremely important.
The Warren-Youngstown-Boardman, Ohio area, which includes Mercer County, Pennsylvania, was ranked 17th among the nation's 61 major metro areas in its increase in jobs by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The area also ranked 27th in total industrial job growth, with a 1,200 to 30,000 job increase.
And one of the things that's happening right now with the coalition is that we're working with all of the training institutions, all of the public and private schools and educational institutions in the entire five-county area.
We all agreed that there needed to be a common curriculum so that if an employer gets a trained worker, they know what that worker is being trained in.
So it's just like a big, huge partnership where we work together, which works out pretty well, especially on the level of talking to each other and saying, hey, we have the same problems, how can we exchange thoughts, like a apprenticeship program, like talking to schools and saying, you know, the way you go as school is not the way we as manufacturer need it.
World-class educational institutions in the OPEN region are preparing the workforce for jobs in existing and emerging industries.
This area of the country has always been a manufacturing hub. And in fact, at YSU, we've worked extensively to rebuild the manufacturing hub within this region.
Though it's different from the steel mills that powered the Mahoning and Shenango valleys in years past, advanced manufacturing is on the rise again throughout the OPEN region.
The use of robotics, the use of information technology to operate machining activities, increased use of logistics and computers to control timing and industrial operations and speed of processing and just-in-time manufacturing, building all of these capabilities together to rebuild the economy of this region.
As a college, as a whole, we're trying to let parents know that there are opportunities beyond these four-year degrees, liberal arts type degrees.
The young kids which we have here, after a couple of months, they all say they like it and they want to stay here.
Educational and workforce development initiatives excel at training today's students to be tomorrow's workers.
Today, we have 90% of our school districts rated excellent or effective. That's more than the average county in Northeast Ohio, and that's more than the state average today.
The region has grown jobs by more than 4% in the past few years, and the Brookings Institution recently ranked it as one of the top 20 metro areas in the country for its economic recovery since the recession ended in 2009. The ongoing development of natural resources in the region's Marcellus and Utica shale is creating a need for workers in the energy sector.
We have several companies that are moving in. One of the most significant is a company called Arrowhead Utica Pipeline. They are going to be involved in construction of the pipelines that will feed the oil shale industry back to the river and elsewhere. Somewhere in the neighborhood of a $50 million project. The industry's here because the oil's in the ground here, but our transportation assets are going to facilitate the industry's success.
The region's location and major roadways, including Interstates 76, 79, and 80, make it a great location for logistics and transportation companies.
From where I'm sitting right now, it's 45 minutes to the Pittsburgh airport with only one traffic light. You can be in downtown Pittsburgh in 1 hour with no traffic lights.
We have more runway feet in the area than most anywhere else in the United States. I market the Pittsburgh airport. We're closer sitting here in my office drive time to the Pittsburgh airport than downtown Pittsburgh is.
This region's location at the heart of the Pittsburgh-Cleveland Industrial Corridor, home to more than 7.2 million people and the country's fourth largest population market, is a key reason why more than 500 trucking firms now operate out of the OPEN interstate region. A number of business incubators have emerged throughout the region to help beginning businesses establish themselves and thrive.
not-for-profit board has been put together that is working with other technology startups that will essentially house, nurture those businesses from their incipient stage to full development, at which time then they will leave the incubator and set up on their own.
Healthcare is leading the way in the OPEN interstate region. Hospitals in the 5-county region are responsible for some 50,000 jobs. The area is not only a great place to start and grow a business, it's also a great place to live and raise a family. Easy access to big city amenities and entertainment in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and a wealth of cultural and recreational attractions throughout the 5 counties.
So here you make a choice. You live well in a nice area with nice people, you can save some money, and then you can take vacation instead of living in a vacation spot where you can't live well because you can't make enough money and you can't go anywhere else either.
Find your personal and professional success right here, the OPEN Interstate Region.
So the OPEN region gives you the best of everything that you can think of in a location. Quality of life, low cost of living, low cost of doing business. OPEN is the way to go.
They call us the Rust Belt, but from my perspective, we're the Bust Belt. We busted out of here in the last century, and we're going to do it again in this century.
So you can see in that video that everybody has their place, and they understand that while they are different workforce development areas, that ultimately working together is going to allow them to have more success. And so you heard a person talking about how, on a basketball team, and that, even though we are separate entities, we really come together as a team to make our area look more pleasing, right, for the employers. And so we do things that make it more pleasing to grow businesses here and to bring businesses here and that kind of thing. So that was really important because we already had that type of attitude going on because they had formed that region. So now with that type of partnership already occurring, we were able to get the workforce development boards to sign off on providing pre-apprenticeship advocacy, events and and hosting those events, and assistance for outreach to additional employers. Some of them actually put up money to sponsor pre-apprenticeship programming as well. Once the registered apprenticeship programs were developed and approved by each state apprenticeship council, because remember, we're talking Ohio and Pennsylvania, so they both had to be approved, TPMA met with each industry sector partnership to share the standards of apprenticeship and start accepting apprentices. Each entity was involved in the Registered Apprenticeship Program's advocacy, and media releases were sent out. And if I remember correctly, ERMP even had an event or a press conference to let manufacturers know about the programs. The grant also covered the cost of the supplemental instruction, anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 per apprentice, depending on how quickly you got in. So you can see that it makes a difference when you could have an industry sector partnership that can advocate for this as well. They become the champions. They're the ones who allowed this grant to be successful so that it could get its 300 apprentices. The facilitation with additional partners was instrumental in recruiting pre-apprentices and getting adults involved in employment training using what's called a work advanced model, which has to do with a pre-employment training program that has commitment from employers to hire people once they're done. These led to the potential of employment with manufacturers in their registered apprenticeship programs for underrepresented and underserved populations. You can see here, I list Goodwill, Community Action Partnership, and Family and Community Services. I'm sure you have a number of community-based organizations that you know would be beneficial to your registered apprenticeship program implementation effort. The apprenticeship initiative, that particular grant, that AI grant, finished up in the fall of 2021, but the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition and West Central Job Partnership are currently implementing a U.S. Department of Labor Workforce Opportunity for Rural Communities grant. It's called a work grant, WORC. That grant has high focus on the work advance model, but also includes technical assistance for pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship. TPMA is assisting in the implementation of the grant. TPMA is also the recipient of a PA Smart Apprenticeship Ambassador grant and provides technical assistance to employers and schools in an 11-county footprint in Western Pennsylvania. All of the partnerships established when TPMA started working with MVMC and the apprenticeship grant are relationships that have continued and are relevant and important to the work that TPMA continues today. So you want to be able to establish these relationships because they're long lasting and they can affect future grants, future funding opportunities, and future connections that will allow your communities to be able to grow and to grow the registered apprenticeship programs. So how would you facilitate partnership development? You know that I always end these sessions with questions for you. So the assignment is to write down all the partners needed to successfully implement a registered apprenticeship program. You've already started to do that through the other sessions that we've talked about. So if you don't currently have a relationship with all of those people that you've written down, but you know who they are, who is it that can help you get that relationship started? And if you think you might know who they are, but you're not sure how to get them involved, who could assist with that? So even though you might not have a one-to-one relationship with everybody right now, you probably know somebody who does. And so use those connections to be able to start growing and talking about registered apprenticeship programs. Who will champion the cause? Who is your advocate like there was for MVMC, where the manufacturer came forward and said, we're going to do something here. This has got to be better. Who has the reputation? Who can put skin in the game and has the passion? You want to always have somebody who's a champion to be able to keep things moving. You need to be able to outline a plan with a tracking matrix or something like that that's actually written down to determine the who, what, when, and how of each step as you facilitate the collaborative group to the registered apprenticeship program development. So think about what you wrote yesterday and take the next 10 to 15 minutes to start writing what's necessary to facilitate partnership development. It's always easier to continue with writing a plan once you get that initial start of pen to paper, like I told you the other day. Ben will be up next to go over developing and registering an apprenticeship program, and then I'll be back in a bit to go over the second part of that two-part session with a visitor from the Department of Labor. So I see you soon.